the end of season 1 of Isla Napali, and it's been a wild ride and it's been awesome. And in today's video I just want to take the time, which will be a short time eventually, but it will be a little bit of a time to dedicate a few words to each and every building in the new part of Isla Napali. So before we go in, this is the entrance of the island. Actually, it's the entrance of the park of the island. Just as a reminder, Isla Napali has been an island in the past that has been used, first of all, for the natives to go fishing and have some gardening here and so on. Before it has been turned into somewhat of a military space within the First World War and the Second World, actually not the First World War, but the Second World War, and it then afterwards was relocated as also a tourist spot before it then eventually got turned into a theme park due to the many changes that had to be made in this area. So many of the facilities on this island have been existing beforehand, so that's what we are going to work it around. And yeah, we have been set our sails at the very beginning of Isla Napali to this little boat tour to build a park around these facilities that already existed. And here we are. That's the entrance building of the park, which is one of the few buildings that has actually been changed according to the needs of a park. It has been installed, at least that's what I imagine, in the early stage of this being a tourist spot, so as kind of an entrance to the park area, which has been more of a garden park, and as a little bit of a gateway into the island itself. So yeah, that's pretty much a little bit of the history of Isla Napali. I think it's about time to go on and talk about every single building in the park. Yeah, Blue Whale, that's our little kids coaster. It is primarily a reinstalled coaster that has been a temporary coaster. These kind of coasters you quite often find on fun fairs and then on smaller parks that used to have these things for just a short period of time before they then get demantled again and put somewhere else. So it has been basically a traveling coaster, as this has been also be used on Isla Napali before it was actually turned into a theme park, and then later on the new owner of the island has retaken this coaster and used some parts of the traveling coaster to reinstall this then permanent kids coaster here on the island. This is really one of the most the most recent installments of the island, next to the dive coaster, because this has been a filler of the little gateway between the old and the new part of the park, which has formerly been only a little bit of a spare space for a backstage environment. And as you can see, there is still a little bit of backstage area left, but that's basically about it for the kids coaster, which is called Blue Whale, by the way. And yeah, I hope a lot of kids will enjoy this one. Now, the next building we are going to talk about is the restaurant of Isla Napali. We currently do only have one restaurant, and this is one of the 2 guest builds of the park. This has been done by the wonderful and amazing Mr. Aston Wolf. He's been creating this building for me, and I have to say he completely exceeded my expectations. It really covers the amazing atmosphere of Isla Napali perfectly fine. Some of you were saying that it has some African vibes to it as well. I see where you're coming from, but I think in its entirety it definitely is what it deserves to be. It's just a wonderful, wonderful piece of art that has been a wonderful and very vital part of the island itself. So yeah, we kind of left also the name Kauai in, even though it's written completely wrong, but it's not necessarily wrong. It's depending on where you're coming from, but it's kind of this little notch to him, and I always love to remember that he did this build for me, and it's really a great build, and I really enjoy that restaurant. So yeah, on the back side of the restaurant, we have a little bit of a small area that is more or less hidden away in the crate of the formerly active volcano of Isla Napali. It is featuring the balloon ride for the very small ones, but it also has a little bit of a recovery area to it between all the busy places of the newer part of the park where all the intense rides are placed. This is a little bit of a relaxing spot where you can sit down and just enjoy your time in the middle of the crate, where it also should be a lot quieter. Like, it's not that noisy as it is in the rest of the park. So this is really for the families to sit down, relax for a moment. So that's also why we have some facilities here, such as toilets and also little shops and stuff. Yeah, that's about it. Moving on to one ride that hasn't been touched too much actually in the entire Isla Napali series, because it simply was filled in actually as a gap filler, but somehow it survived to be located where it is located, and it became one of the most, I think, nostalgic looking things to the park, because that's basically a very small tiny kids ride. It's like a little Ferris wheel in the pirate style, and we kind of switched it to a more wave style that it really fits to the area of Hawaii. And I have to say, this is really cool because this is exactly between the restaurant and that little relaxing area behind that. So it's again a ride for the smaller ones, and I think it really fits exactly where it is. It also hides away a little bit from the backstage area that is in the middle of this one and the dive coaster. So yeah, I really enjoy this ride, to be honest, and I'm fairly happy to give it a little bit of screen time, at least at the moment, and remember that this is really a vital part of the park, and yeah, it deserves to be on screen. So that's the little pirate Ferris wheel. Okay, so now we are talking about Tentacle, which is the Big Dipper coaster of Isla Napali, and maybe the most signature coaster of the park, because it definitely is that one coaster that I've been building at the very beginning of this park. I have to admit, yes, this was also purely a decision because I badly wanted to build a Big Dipper coaster, but over time I think this is the most changed item of the entire park. I don't really know how often this has been changed over the course of time, due to, you know, new updates, due to new features, due to many new ideas and comments of yours. So a lot of things changed, and I have to say, I love this coaster. What it is like is better than I've ever expected to make it. I love the queue. I love that this is fitted into an industrial area that has been formerly a warehouse and now kind of covers this coaster in its entirety. I just love it. Alright, the Rocktopus ride of Isla Napali is when I just said that Tentacle, the coaster, was the most signature coaster for the park, this is definitely the most signature attraction or ride for our community on this channel. I really have to say that this really kicked off the idea of being really all together deciding what is going on. I really dig into the story of this item. So the Rocktopus ride has been the only ride that has been, at the moment at least, relocated from the old part of the park into the new part of the park. Reason being is, and that's the story you guys came up with, that this is purely put here to remember and remind people of saving the octopuses around Isla Napali. And as you can see, we are also actually, Mr. Crapzone did this amazing little marketing stand in front of the Rocktopus ride, and we also had some wonderful videos sent in. One of those is running currently on that screen down there, which is also marketing activity. So all in all, this was a huge community effort, and I just love it. Yeah, Nalu, our big top spin. I have to say, that might be the lowest, or kind of the ride which has, at least for me, the least emotion to it, which is due to several reasons. It gave me a huge struggle in terms of guest flow management. As you can really spot from this view over here, we have these barriers also placed in here, which are purely here to manage somewhat of the guest flow. It is, I don't know why, but people in-game love this ride. So the queue is fairly short, I have to admit, but this doesn't take away from the fact that it is just a top spin, but people just seem to I don't know, they want to die for this ride. So this is always completely overcrowded. So yeah, at the end of the day, I love it because of the name. I love to go into a more Hawaiian name with it, and I love the placing of it, so that you can really, from the one hand side, you can look to the beach, but if you are on the top side of this ride, you can really spot the whole park and see the whole beauty of the park. So that's what I really like about the ride. But at the end of the day, if I would have to choose about one ride that I'm, you know, fairly, I don't know, indifferent about, that would be this ride. Okay, so when I said that the Topspin was the ride which I'm the least emotional about, then this might be the ride that I'm the most emotional, is maybe not the right word, but I'm the least indifferent and the most happy and willing to admit that this is the most and best ride in this park about, because this is Wavebreaker, a dive coaster that has been built by the Sylph company, and Silverette was so nice to jump in as the first guest builder, actually, one of the two that have been helping in here till today, and he built this fantastic dive coaster. And yes, I think during the course of Isla Napali, it appeared that many people had some criticism about the fact how it interacts with the crate in here and with the canyon, so to say. But I have to say, if we talk about the fact that this might take away from the realism, it was my mistake in the first place that I even created that canyon. And since I got away with the argument that it's also for the looks and that there is not the possibility to make this island as big as that there would be a real canyon that is above sea level, we do have to deal with that fact, and I think we can basically survive with the fact. However, having Wavebreaker as one of the weenies at the moment, the weenie of the park, I'm just purely proud of what the theming could be, or what the theming is delivering at the end. Because at the beginning, I was really challenged by Sylph to get a nice theming of this ride, but at the end, I am just completely happy with how this turned out. And yeah, I hope you guys love it as much as I do. Oh, and by the way, I couldn't really decide for a real good angle, and this is why I integrated this angle as well, just as a quick reminder that I love the queue of this ride, especially because it's the longest queue I've ever built in the game. It's more or less the most realistic I've ever built in the game, including the fact that we have one of the most realistic switch track installments and in general layouts of this coaster. It just is one of the most realistic coasters I've ever had in my parks. And yeah, that's also, again, a huge thanks to Sylph, but also a huge thanks to all of you guys giving very constructive criticism to the whole build, and that only made it that good as it is right now. Okay, now let's talk about the Chairlift on Isla Napali, which is at the moment connecting the actual park area with that bunker on top of the island. I have to say that is the one thing that is not finished in here, and this will be built in, I don't know when, because maybe I'm doing this at some point when nobody expects it, and then I just bring it out as a kind of special in-between series, because it will be way too much work. But I love this ride because I always wanted to integrate that ride since it came out, and I hadn't really that great of an idea. But at the end, I'm pretty happy how it turned out. It's freaking realistic in terms of how it is set on top of the Wavebreaker, Wavebreaker, if you will, because there we do have this kind of security system for the canyon installed, and on top of that, which is obviously concrete, we were able to put the supports for the chairlift. And yeah, it's just a nice addition to the park, but it still has to get a little bit more of love to be finally finished. It's actually not really a ride, is it? But the arcade of Isla Napali does really need a little bit of attention as well. This is basically one of the things that is purely done with UGC, and these things from UGC. What the hell is our mechanic? He's going to get some chewing gums without even paying. Oh my! But this arcade is done basically with all the items Red Mist did, and he's got some seriously amazing arcade UGC pieces for the game, as you can see. And yeah, I just love it because it's just jank, but it's so cool. I mean, it's really cool. Okay, I have to admit it was really hard to find an angle to present you this one, but I chose this angle because it really shows it a bit from the distance. The Just a Memento souvenir shop with the lovely piece of Woody, who made a little Rudi Rennkamel plushie for the game, is one of the most important things for me, because it really is, again, something that shows how great you guys of the community are and what you can do. But eventually I wanted to put this here somewhat as a reminder of the go-karts track, which has been installed here for quite a while. I think more than 60 or 70% of the entire series it has been here on the island, but then eventually has been replaced. And to be honest, you have to kill your babies sometimes to go forward, and that's what we did with the go-karts track. And I have to say, it was the best decision ever, because it is like a million times better now with having this area. But in the next couple of little frames you will see what has been installed here instead. So yeah, that said, these are the next bits of Isla Napali that have been installed recently, and these are two very basic flat rides, as the lovely carousel over here and the I even forgot how this roundabout ride is called, but these are very basic things. I have to say, I love how the carousel is integrated in this little plaza, and I love the building that leads into the other flat ride on the left hand side, because that's one of the coolest buildings over here. And it really pays into the story of Isla Napali, that all these buildings have been here already, and the whole theme park has been built around them. The go-kart track instead felt a bit too forced, so, well, you know, that's how we ended up with, and I'm a million times more happy with the result. Okay, we've been talking about rides a lot of time in this little dedication video, but we also have to talk about the hotel. The hotel of Isla Napali, the Napali Inn, is one of the coolest buildings actually ever made, because I never built a dedicated hotel in Planet Coaster, and it was never planned at the beginning, to be honest, but it really was a lot of fun to build this building. Yes, we had a lot of struggle, and yes, I did several iterations, especially of the entrance building and the roofing, again due to your feedback, and it's just amazing. And I think how it turned out, it's really a leap forward in what I've been creating in Planet Coaster so far. So yeah, I really like that one. I really like the hotel. Okay, so that is Isla Napali. That's the end of season number 1, the old part, actually, no, the new part of Isla Napali. And a last dedication goes definitely to the harbor. I think starting the whole thing off to build realistically in this game, this harbor raised my level of realism by, I think, 900,000 times. This is something I've been changing over the whole course of season 1 many times, due to UGC pieces, your feedback, my kind of progress in building realistically. And I think the outcome, if you kind of tweak a little bit of the settings, and you know what, it's just a picture perfect little harbor. It could be like exactly like this in real life, and I know people out there will always find criticism, but for what the game is capable of doing, and for what we wanted to do, this is awesome. And I think it deserves to have the last shout out, because this is the very bit we started the whole series with, and it still to date is really the entry point, the real entry point of the island. And it still stands for Isla Napali, and it is beautiful. What more can I say? I just love this project, like on the first day, and I hope you guys do as well. And I think it's time for season 2, isn't it? So hopefully I'll see you there. Until then, have an awesome time, guys, and yeah, enjoy. Bye bye.
Love that's flowing.